Will the Dallas Cowboys finally, and I mean finally, have all 5 starting offensive linemen together on the field at the same time? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match worth up to $100. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon and the Dallas Cowboys have a monster matchup in Week 5 against the San Francisco 49ers. The good news is there's a chance, a small chance, that the Cowboys could have their entire offensive line back on the field. I'm just going to ask you, what do you think it's actually going to happen this week?
I think it's unfair to call it a small chance. I think well, I mean, maybe it's not, but I think it's fair to call it more than likely they will have their starting five. But I wouldn't say that we are out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there's a walkthrough, there's a flight, there's a walk down the hallway at this point. Yeah, I mean, it's been. I was talking to somebody the other day. We felt like we've quantified this a couple different ways. It's been two years. It's been 20 plus games or whatever it is. I think the thing that strikes me the most is that Tyler Smith has never played with the assumed starting 5 offensive linemen for the Dallas Cowboys. That's never happened for him.
Well, the other one is he's never played next to Tyron Smith. And
that's honestly, totally nuts.
What makes me the most nervous is assuming you do get all 5 offensive linemen back. I think everybody just assumes hey, it's going to be a great unit right away. And the one thing that we know about offensive lines is continuity matters a lot. And knowing exactly what to expect next, with the players that are next to you. And this feels like a really tough game to try to figure all that out on the fly.
Well, to be fair, I have seen this lineup quite a bit because we saw this lineup quite a bit in training camp, in training camp the previous year. So it's not like they don't have some reps together. They do have reps. It's just it's obviously 0 game day reps. Yeah. I will say that something that's interesting that was pointed out is that, look, obviously their defensive line is incredible. It's elite. It's on par with the Cowboys. It's a nightmare. The positive thing about this is that they don't do a bunch of twists, a bunch of stunts. They don't do a ton of blitzing, which is like the kind of confusing aspect of it. It is going to be more just about, a street fight between our offensive line and their defensive line, which, isn't great anyways, but at least there isn't the added element of a whole bunch of extra confusion that could cause problems with the continuity.
Sure.
I think that this is, in many different ways, the best game for the Cowboys to finally get their starting offensive line back. Not obviously in the sense of it would be great. It would have been great to get at least a game underneath their belt first. But listen, if you're giving me the option of having the starting 5 out there against the San Francisco 49ers or not, I'm certainly taking the starting 5.
Yeah. So how much of an advantage would it be for the Cowboys to have all 5 offensive linemen, assuming they're healthy? Like if Zach Martin and Tyron Smith are active, I got to assume they're healthy enough to be effective on the field. But is it enough to potentially neutralize most of the 49ers pass rush?
I don't think it's about neutralizing it completely, but I think it's about just having a higher percentage of successful plays. I think that there's just that extra 3 to 4 plays in the game where having a backup offensive lineman may have may have ruined the play because you're asking Adoga to go against Nick Bosa on a 3rd and 7, and maybe Tyron Smith can't hold him for 3 seconds, but he can hold him for 2.5, whereas Adoga could hold him for 2.25, and that 2.25 seconds is the difference between that getting the pass off or not. So
I will
think-
say this. One of the things I don't want to see in this game is an overconfidence in the offensive line. And what I mean by that is I think McCarthy loves 5-man protections, which I get, especially if you're getting rid of the ball quickly. But against the 49ers, they've got so much speed, and they almost dare you to throw the ball quick on them because they can rally to the football and tackle. I think I would still like to see a lot of 6 and maybe even 7-man protections, because the way to beat this 49ers team is by throwing the ball down the field. So, yes, it's great that you could potentially have all 5 offensive linemen back on the field, but I'm good if the Cowboys kind of want to slow play it a little bit and see how everything looks before they really just at least all 5 offensive weapons on the field at the same time.
I actually disagree a little bit.
Okay.
I tend to think that the way to beat the 49ers is the way that the 49ers want to force you to play. Except the difference is that the Cowboys play that way better than anyone in the NFL. The way to beat the 49ers is in the quick game, is to move the ball down the field efficiently. And then listen, when they start to come down, when they start to bring their safeties down more and they start to look, then you take the shots over the top if they provide for them. But I think the difference between what the 49ers are forcing other offenses to do versus what the Cowboys can do is that the Cowboys can play that game. The Cowboys have one of the few quarterbacks in the league who can play the quick game all the up and down the field. If you want to play just a dink and dunk to get between the 20s. Now, here's the problem. When they get in the red zone, they got to score points.
And that's where the 49ers are great.
Actually, they're not. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, not statistically this year.
Yes. Statistically this year.
Generally
speaking, that's really where they need to find a way to take advantage and solve the red zone woes this week. Again, as someone who believes that it's kind of not a statistical anomaly, but I feel like this is something that will even itself out. I think that the Cowboys will be able to kind of put points on the board better than they have in previous weeks. And I think part of that has to do with having trusting your offensive line and play and calling the plays that kind of indicate that and allowing them to shine a little bit.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's not very often that we disagree on how we plan on seeing the Cowboys attack, but the way that I look at the 49ers defense is it's really hard to sustain long drives against them because eventually you're going to get a turnover, or sorry, you're going to get like a penalty or a drop pass. And once you get in third and long, it's hard to consistently move the chains. So I always look at this as like, hey, this is where you need your receivers to play well. And we saw it last year. Like the Cowboys had a big chunk play down the field to CeeDee Lamb. And that's how they were kind of able to move the ball. It's a defense that you've got to find a way to get 30, 40-yard gains to put yourself into, scoring position. It's going to be fascinating to see how Mike McCarthy, as the play caller, tries to balance staying ahead of the chains while trying to be aggressive and taking shots down the field. That's what I'm the most interested in seeing on Sunday night.
I don't think that, look, I don't know that we are necessarily on opposite sides of this, because I think that ultimately what the Cowboys need to do is draw the 49ers defense down in order to take those shots over the top. Because I do agree with you that the difference between this season and previous seasons is that the Cowboys have better receiving options. They have the option to go down. They have the options to create big plays with their receivers that they didn't necessarily have, especially once Pollard got injured, right? But I think that in order to kind of earn those deep shots, you've got to find a way to draw Hufanga down into the box. You got to find a way to get it just so they're having a single safety high. Then once you isolate their corners on our wide receivers, that's when you take the shots down the field and get your chunk plays when you can against a defense that has been almost impossible to get chunk plays against. So you've got to draw them down in order to get the favorable matchups that you want on the outside.
All right, let's talk about the other side of the ball and how in the world the Cowboys can stop Brock Purdy, which seems so wild to say, but Brock Purdy still has not lost a regular season game. Let's talk about how the Cowboys can match up against this 49ers offense next. This episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look so good. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and the leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they just fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of that stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs have fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like a khaki, but stretches so you get a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dog uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Bird Dogs are functional for any occasion. I absolutely love using my Bird Dogs when I'm out on the golf course because not only does it keep you nice and cool and dry, but they're also flexible, so you can twist a little bit. Bird Dogs are just amazing. I wear them all the time. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or enter promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That is birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. This episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. We'd let you know that up top. We want to let you know that the Locked On NFL Kickoff Live Show is here every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. We're going live with host Tanitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs, who will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and so much more. Plus, get in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Landon, let's talk about Brock Purdy. The last time the Cowboys played him, he actually didn't have a great game. What's the key to slowing down Purdy?
Well, I think you just got to get him off his mark. I mean, I think the key thing with Birdie is Birdie. Wow, that's actually a great nickname. With Purdy is that he is just kind of the perfect Shanahan quarterback. Like he just
does exactly
operates
what the offense says.
He does exactly what Kyle would do if Kyle was in the game. And I think that's what Kyle wants, right? Is that he wants a quarterback that will operate his offense the way that Kyle would operate it. And I think that that's just about, they're ruthlessly efficient on first and second down. They don't want to get into third downs. No. And I think that that's where the Cowboys have got to find a way to force them into that situation. Purdy has really basically been in a situation where, it's not that we should be giving him credit because the numbers are ridiculous, but he's also been provided a situation that is just outrageously good for a quarterback, right? Like Kyle Shanahan's the best play caller, play designer in the NFL. He's got wide receivers and running backs and tight ends that are on par with the best teams in the NFL. So the key thing is to make Purdy uncomfortable. You've got to find a way to make Purdy uncomfortable, and that's kind of hard to do when you've got Kyle Shanahan and all those offensive weapons. So I think that the way that you're going to have to do it is you're going to have to beat down the 49ers' ruthless efficiency on first and second down. You have to find a way to get them into third down situations because they're just not comfortable with that. And then if you could find a way to get into an obvious passing down, the center on to the right are all very fertile targets for this pass rush. You could find a way. Yeah, exactly. You could find a way to attack the center on over to the right tackle with a wide variety of all the guys you have. Obviously, specifically Micah in the middle because he's had a ton of success getting in through the A gap and through the B gap. I do think that we haven't seen Purdy under assault the way that he, a lot of quarterbacks have been at different points in his career. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that having Trent Williams, who's the best offensive lineman on the planet, on one side. But the rest of the four offensive linemen Banks is pretty good, but the other three are pretty suspect. And the Cowboys can find a way to make hay against the pass rush, but they have to find a way to stop and slow things down on first and second down where this offensive line, again, acts as an extension of Kyle Shanahan, and their schemes are so good that it doesn't take a lot of talent to get where they need to get and to seal off guys and create creases for McCaffrey. So the Cowboys have got to find a way to disrupt early and downs to get them into third down and then make Purdy uncomfortable.
And even when you get to third and long, Shanahan does a really good job of making sure Purdy doesn't get into bad situations. They'll run screens. They'll even just run the ball. They'll just run the ball on 3rd and 11 and be like, hey, we're going to lean our defense rather than having Purdy make, a tough throw into a window. One of the things that I'm going to be really curious to see is how do the Cowboys deploy Micah Parsons? Because we saw in the first meeting in the playoffs they actually let Parsons go up against Trent Williams a lot. And actually, Parsons had some success. Now, he wasn't quite as effective. In 2022, we saw him go up against the right tackle, which was Mike McGlinchey, far more successful. So, do the Cowboys put Parsons over the center just to create the most havoc? Or do they feel like if we put Parsons on Trent Williams and maybe he wins some of those matchups, we just have massive advantages everywhere else, right? And if, we have DeMarcus Lawrence against their right tackle who's really, really struggled. Is that the best way to create a consistent pass rush, is by basically going 1-for-1 Parsons, Trent Williams, and then everybody else? I don't know. I think the answer is probably to mix it up a little bit and just don't let the 49ers know where Parsons is coming from, but you've got to rattle Purdy somehow. And we've seen like he's going to give you probably 2 or 3 chances in this game. You just got to make the plays.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is what you said. I think it's about mixing it up, because I think it's not even just about getting DeMarcus Lawrence on the right tackle. Give me DeMarcus Lawrence on that right guard. Give me DeMarcus Lawrence inside, and give me DeMarcus Lawrence against Trent Williams, because, look, he may not be the athletic marvel that Micah Parsons is, but there's very few people in the entire NFL that have better hand technique than DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yes.
So even against Trent Williams, I think that he can give him a couple of really good reps and keep him on his heels. I tend to think that they need to attack the middle of that pocket. It's so hard for quarterbacks to have to throw the football when they get attacked in their face, especially for young quarterbacks. And Purdy has been exceptional and not turning the ball over. There's got to be some regression there. Let's force some of that.
I mean,
regression.
you saw there was, I think, the game against the Giants. Yeah, it was a game against the Giants.
Yeah, he had a couple.
The Monday Night Football. Like, there was multiple chances for the Giants to make plays in that game, and they just dropped them. You can't do that. Like, those are going to be the game. If you make those plays, I think the Cowboys are going to win. But if you drop them or you're just a step late, you really don't have a chance here.
I think the Cowboys do have the advantage in quarterback play. I think, but as far as how the quarterback produces in the offense,
it's different. Yeah,
I think it may be a pretty even matchup between these two teams.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. The last thing on the offense before we move on, tackling. Now, the Cowboys have been fantastic at tackling this season, outside of a little bit in that Cardinal game. I believe they only have 7 missed tackles on the season, but the 49ers have the NFL's best 2 receivers after the catch. George Kittle is amazing. And then there's obviously Christian McCaffrey. You've got to rally to the football. You've got to tackle. You can't let a 3-yard gain turn into an 11-yard game. That's how they're going to lose this one. If they don't tackle well, they don't have a chance.
Yeah, and I think that's, it kind of feeds back into what we said about early down play, right? If tackling on first and second down is going to be key, because you can't let a first down 7-yard pass turn into a first down 12-yard pass, right?
Yeah.
And that may seem like 5 yards, but it's like there's all add up. And if they're consistently getting first downs on first and second down, you're not getting an opportunity to give your defense to put your defense on the footing that it wants to be, and really go after them. So this more than any game that they've played so far, this is a game where they really have to earn the right to pass rush. But I also think that when they earn that right, once they have earned that right, they have the chance to be incredibly successful because of the mismatches of our defensive line versus their offensive line.
All right, let's make our predictions for week 5 next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is easily the most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, all you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is honestly the most fun I've ever had playing DFS. You can win up to 25 times your money this football season. I love how many different stats and players that you can choose from. I also like this new PrizePicks reboot policy. If one of your players gets injured in the first half of the game and does not return for the second half, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. This is for not only the NFL, but also for college football top 25 matchups absolutely fantastic. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match worth up to $100. All right, Landon, best time of the week, prediction time. Who do you have winning this NFC showdown?
Well, look, I mean, if I pick the Cowboys every single week on this show, it would be hard to find me very credible. I think I'm going to pick the 49ers. This is just a very, very good football team. And I think if the Cowboys are allowed to lose any game this season, it's against a very good 49ers team in San Francisco. But I think it's going to be a close game. And listen, I really do think this is a 50-50 game, and I'm picking San Francisco more as a formality more than anything. I think I'm going to pick San Francisco to win 28-24. I do think that the Cowboys will I'm 28-27. I'm sorry. I think it's going to be a 1-point game. Okay. And I think the problem is going to be, unfortunately, that the Cowboys kick field goals in the red zone at times when they probably should have scored touchdowns. But if they can find a way to get past that, which I would not be shocked if they did, I think the Cowboys can pull this one out. This is going to be a really good game, I think, between two very talented teams. San Francisco may be the only team on the Cowboys roster that is markedly better roster talent-wise than the Cowboys. Yeah. I think, Eagles are probably pretty on par. I think 49ers probably it's just maybe a tick above, but I think the difference here is that, again, I trust our quarterback more than theirs. And I think that's ultimately what's going to keep this game close. But I at this point, I think if I don't pick the 49ers to win, then I'm probably going to pick the Cowboys for every single game of the rest of the season. So I'm picking the 49ers 28-27.
I don't worry about the Cowboys defense too much. Like, the 49ers are going to score some touchdowns. They're going to get points. Like, they're going to be fine. I think the Cowboys can hold them to, I'm going to go 23 points. And that usually should be enough to win. I just think with the Cowboys still kind of working out some of the red zone issues, the offensive line, first game back together, potentially. You also have a couple guys that are still beat up. Like, Terrence Steele is still working to come back from his injury. And you see that on tape. I mean, he's played the last few weeks, but he's still working back. Tyler Biotish working back from the hamstring injury. I thought Zach Martin last week, it was awesome that he played. He's still not 100%. I got to assume Tyron Smith isn't at 100% either. I just wouldn't be surprised if this is a game where it just looks kind of clunky for the Cowboys on offense, and maybe they have a couple turnovers, but I'm going to go, let's go a weird score, 23-18 49ers. But I agree. I think it's a one-score game through and through.
Yeah, and again, I think if the Cowboys get in there and you see some success in the red zone, then it's game on. Like, yeah. I think the Cowboys have every chance to win this game.
Last thing,
but we got to see it first.
We were talking about this pre-show. Brock Purdy, I believe this is the number, 41 career snaps when trailing, and he's never trailed by more than a field goal in a regular season game. I want to see, and this is really the key for the Cowboys: get an early lead. Yeah. We saw this against the Jets. You took the ball, you scored on the first drive. We saw this against the Patriots. You took the ball, you got a field goal. It's still points. And then everything kind of, went well from there. I want to see what this game looks like if the Cowboys get up 7-0, 10-3, 13-3. And now the 49ers are forced to have a little bit more of a standard drop back passing game. Get a lead, and I think the Cowboys can control this one.
I agree. Yeah, if the Cowboys are able to play in the game script that they want, then I feel very good about the Cowboys' chances, because it's just a lot of unknown for Purdy. Yeah. And it's a lot of unknown against a defense that really wants to get you in that kind of position.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Everydayers, we'll be back on Monday to break down this game, win or lose. I want to let you know that we are free and available on all platforms. Check out our shows on YouTube. We post content every single day. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy this awesome Week 5 game, and we'll see you right back here next time.